everyone, Miss P here. Just taking a final look at the different requirements for your self-directed experimental design, or we've just been calling it the individual lab report that you're going to do. So prior to this video, there were a couple things that you should have already done. In class, we would have already discussed this, and then you would have filled out a Google form that's going to list your 3 different essential questions that you are going to try to get approved. Again, only one of them is going to get approved, but you will have already filled out that Google form. And we've already discussed these different pieces. So obviously we know that by this point for your experimental design process, you're going to form your essential question, you're going to form a hypothesis, you're going to tell me how you went about conducting the experiment. So that's in your procedure. And if I could scroll down, that would be lovely. There we go. Where you're also going to be listing your different materials. Obviously, you are then going to collect your data. 5x3 method is preferred, but I know for some of your essential questions, you won't be able to get a 5x3, but a 5x1 is still going to be acceptable, but you do have to have at least 5 data points. We know that we do need all of those points in order to see a proper trend line that is going to accurately describe what you're seeing. And then you're going to form the mathematical model, you're going to do the conclusion, and you're going to do your error analysis. So we've already discussed all of those things. Prior to this video, again, you're going to look at this brief reading on the breakdown of the scientific paper. Really all this is going to do is kind of solidify in more of like a graphic the pieces that I've already listed for you above. So your lab report is written in pretty much the same way that you've gone about the experiment. Essential question all the way to, hey, here's my data. Let's discuss the data. Now let's do the error analysis. Additionally, with this quick kind of breakdown here, you were supposed to watch this video that is going to more so talk about the style of how you're going to write each of those different pieces. And again, we've already talked about that a little bit in class. But what I want to talk about here is more so the formatting of your lab report and what I expect from that. And like I say here, it's going to be really evident if you didn't watch this video, because if you didn't watch this video, then chances are you didn't hear me talk about the format. But hopefully, if nothing else, you have looked at this exemplar lab report. So let's go ahead and just pull that up to make sure we're all on the same page here. In the 2 previous links, the very first thing that it's going to talk about is the fact that you do have to have a title page. Nothing else goes on this title page other than what you're seeing right here. So oftentimes people's formatting will get messed up and they'll put the introduction on the first page. Don't do that. That's not proper formatting. So your introduction page simply has your title. It has your name. It always then has the course that you are in, who your instructor is, and then the date, which typically you're just going to put the date that it's due is going to go there. Also notice that you're already going to start your page numbering. That should be in that upper right-hand corner. From there, every section should have a title. This should not just be one giant conglomerate of words and diagrams with no real flow to it. So each different section, just like the different sections that were discussed in this document, should have a title. So we see the title here. Now, one of the things that you would have watched in the video previous to this is the fact that typically scientific papers have an abstract. But honestly, I don't think I wrote an abstract until my senior year of college. Typically, you are just doing an introduction, whereas an abstract has a little bit more to it in terms of like the conclusions that were found rather than just introducing, hey, here's what's going to be looked at. Really, the purpose of an abstract when you're in kind of that high level of the scientific field is to see if other people want to read your paper. They want to see, you know, sure, like what did you do very briefly, but then what were the results? Because from those results, then they're going to see, hey, I want to analyze this. I may want to duplicate the experiment, but that is not our purpose. So we are not doing an abstract, but we are going to do an introduction. So for an introduction, I do expect you to tell me obviously what you are going to do, but then big thing is, you know, why are you doing it? Big thing that we've been talking about since day one is really that why component. We should always do something for a reason, for a purpose. And then once we do something, okay, well, we want to discuss, what are those results? Why are those results important? So that why question is really the biggest thing, which if you look at your rubric is in here as well. So you're not just telling me, hey, I baked cookies, I put different fat content in the cookies, and I wanted to see how big they were going to get. Yes, you should tell me that, but then tell me, why did you want to research this question? So you may be somebody who is considering going into culinary. So you wanted to do something that kind of sparked your interest there. So just kind of make it unique to yourself. So always have that why piece in there. And now that's a little bit more specific to kind of what we're doing here. But that is what I'd like you to have in this specific introduction. In the future, there will be kind of other requirements for the introduction, but for this one, that is what I would like to see. And then you do have to make it, catching so that your reader wants to continue to read your paper. If you just say, yep, this is what I did, ta-da, that doesn't really entice the reader. So try to just write it so that your reader is excited to continue to read the paper. And it shouldn't be more than this length. It should just be about a paragraph. You should not be writing an entire page just for the introduction. If you're doing that, then you're just kind of rambling on at that point. So it's brief, real quick paragraph. Here's what I'm going to look at. Here's why I want to look at it. And, here's why this is kind of an exciting thing to look at. So that's going to be your first part. Again, you're not doing kind of a full abstract. You're just introducing what the paper is going to be about. And then as it said in the last video, your materials and methods, obviously you have to tell me exactly what I need in order to perform this experiment. Because remember, this is going to be, and with your procedure as well, this should be written as if somebody has absolutely no idea what you're talking about, and they need to 100% with 100% accuracy, recreate your experiment. So if you don't tell me all the materials that I need, then I can't recreate it in the exact manner that you did. So details matter. Technical details matter. In order to get a full and clear message across, you have to have those technical details. And you will hear that over and over and over again. So one really good thing to do is to finish this paper prior to the deadline, at least 2 days prior to the deadline, so that I can take a quick look over, because my typical comments are going to be, you need to add more detail here, and you may not know that unless you get me to read it beforehand. So notice here, lots of good details, lots of good numbers in there, and then her procedure was in there as well. For this paper, I don't care whether you write your procedure in the form of a paragraph or if you write in bullet points that have full sentences. As long as full sentences are present, we are fine either way. That could change from teacher to teacher, professor to professor, but I've had both. So for this particular one, I don't care if you do bullet points or if you do a full paragraph. It does look nicer with a full paragraph, but that doesn't mean it's necessarily easier for somebody to read it. It really doesn't matter either way. So again, we're seeing title at the top. We have the results. We have titles to the table. In the video that you would have just watched, it is advantageous to say, hey, this is figure 1, this is figure 2. It is good for you to have that, especially if you're going to reference back to, hey, looking at figure 1, I had this. So if I were to add anything to this lab report, I'd add that. That's nothing that I would take off at this point, but it is something that you may want to start to practice. And then really what I want to show you is the discussion. So we have our good mathematical model up there. And then if we look at the discussion, you're seeing that it's a little bit more than a page. That is what I expect. If you are only writing this teeny tiny paragraph for your discussion, I can guarantee that you are going to lose points. I can guarantee that you are not analyzing it to the level that is necessary for this class, because you should be looking at what is the data telling us, what is the trend line telling us, what are the different parts of the model telling us, what's the R-squared telling us. So all of those pieces should be in there, and you should be extensively referencing data. So remember, we don't just make a statement. Sure, we make a statement and then we say, here's why I am making that statement. Here's why I think this. And then here's the data to support that statement. So it's kind of a 3-step process. It's not just like, hey, Cool, linear trend line. Yes, okay, but why do you think we saw that linear trend line? What is the data looking like? So, oh, I can confirm that it's a linear trend line because I have an R squared of 99%. So I can be very definitive in this statement. So those different pieces should be there. So if you're not hitting about a page double space, I can guarantee that you're going to lose points. So again, if you get this done early, I can give you that feedback that may help you say, oh, I didn't explain this point. That can help me get to a full page. And then once again, we have our error analysis as the title, and then we go from there. Remember, we never, ever, ever say human error. You will instantly lose points if you do that. We are just simply stating, hey, here are the pieces that could have affected the data, and then here's how it could have affected the data. And that's the biggest thing, is that how piece. So if we just go back to the baking example, if you're like, yeah, my oven's old, cool. But what could that do to your data then? What could that have done to the time component? What could that have done to the expansion rate? So there's always, hey, here's what could have affected my data, but then here's how. So if I'm saying I have a really old oven and it doesn't heat up really well, then I'm saying, oh, that time component increased, blah, blah, blah. So always make sure that you have the how. And then we are done. So I know in the last video it said your lab report should be about 2 to 3 pages. That's only talking about like the content section. Because 2 to 3 pages doesn't make any sense if your first page is simply a title page. So it's really your content area down here that's going to be your like 2 to 3 pages. Don't be writing a 10-page lab report. That's too much. But this is about what I expect, which is why this is the exemplar. So yeah, just make sure that you have this formatting, have that title page, have those numbers, have those different headers as you go. And then just make sure, again, that you've watched that video previously, because when you get down into the discussion section, it talks a lot about how you're not really stating your feelings in the discussion. Lab reports are very technical. So in other classes where it wants to know, hey, how did you feel about this? How does the audience feel about this? That is not what happens in a lab report. You are simply communicating what was done, what was found, what does it mean, period, end of sentence. So there shouldn't be, I feel that this is a linear trend line. No, it's a linear trend line because you have an R squared of 99%, boom, done. So just kind of make sure that you are not writing in the style that wouldn't be technical, because that's what we're going for here. So if you have any questions, make sure that you either see me, send an email, but hopefully this helps with the formatting. And then between all of these different resources, you should be good to go to write your paper. Again, hopefully you submit this early so that I can give you some feedback. And that is all I have at this point. All right, I look forward to reading your reports.